Welcome back, y'all, to the DIY Homebuyer podcast. I'm your host, Nick, and I'm super thrilled to have our guest, Nathan Payne, on. Nathan is no stranger to the whole process of DIY home buying. He has been a real estate investor for several years now, and actually now he's teaching people how to get their first deal as real estate investors, especially in the whole space of flipping and wholesaling. So I'm sure he's going to talk to us some about that, as well as just his journey. But Nathan, man, I'm so glad to have you on. How you doing?
Man, I'm feeling excellent. Excellent. I woke up early this morning, 5 a.m., worked out, did some rolls on my mat I was showing you on the jiu-jitsu mat. Feeling great.
Dude, I love it. I have never been a morning person. In my mind, I would love to be that morning person, but I was in your Payneless Flipping Facebook group, which is an amazing community that you built there, by the way. We'll get into that. But I saw you talking about how you've recently become like the morning person. It sounds like you've got a pretty like sweet routine dialed in. So you want to talk to us? Just what does your morning look like now?
Dude, I would be lying to you if I told you I was a morning person as well, right? Like I never was until I forced myself to be, right? But for real, like I look forward to waking up every morning. I'm so excited. Like when I go to bed, I'm pumped to wake up the next day and go through like the process, the routine. So you're saying you're asking like, what does it look like?
Yeah.
It's changed over the years, and it always changes, especially with a baby. You know, I just had a baby. I think she's 16 months now. So throughout that, like her journey of growing, it's changed so much, right? Because you don't always have like that morning where it can be uninterrupted. But anyway, I wake up at 5. Like this is the like ideal morning, right? Yep. And if anybody wants to like learn more about it, it's 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. Great book, referred to me by another great entrepreneur. But 5 a.m. Club, I wake up at 5 a.m. As soon as I wake up, I pray, I get off my bed, kneeling prayer. Is it that efficient and effective? Probably not. I can barely like really pray or think when I wake up that early, but I pray, brush my teeth. Takes about I time a lot too. I like to be really use my time wisely. So it takes about 15 minutes to do that. Then I go outside and I run. I do hit. Now I have a shop. I just moved here about 3 months ago. So now I do my rolls on my mat, shadow wrestling, pull-ups, whatever. So 20-minute hit, intense exercise to wake your body up. And then in the book, it teaches the next 20 minutes reflect. So then I read, right? I read and then I reflect and I journal. The guy says reflect and then read, but I actually read first and then reflect. So that's pretty much it. You got your intense exercise. The next thing you do is you read. I like to read the scriptures. I like to read the Word of God just because I feel like if anyone's got something important to say, it's the Word of God. So I read that and then I go from that to reflecting, and I like writing a lot, man. I have like tons of journals. I actually like plan out my day, and I have like a little binder like a 10-year-old would have at school. So I plan out my day.
I love it, man. I know that we didn't exactly come here to talk about your morning routine, so this is all bonus for our listeners, but it clearly is working for you. Like you've got a real mental sharpness, and you can tell you're fit and living that fit lifestyle. But let's get into some of your real estate investing and just what it's looked like for you to get into this whole real estate space. So you want to talk to us just about your introduction to real estate as well as perhaps your first deal?
Let's do it. So I got into real estate investing. Before I got into investing or real estate at all, I was doing door-to-door sales from college until I graduated and met my wife. So it was like 6 years. And door-to-door sales, people were like, man, that sounds like it's stupid, right? Like, who does that? Well, I went on a mission for my church for 2 years. I was like the guys that wear the white shirts and the ties and the name tags and knock on your door, and everyone's like, get the freak away from me, right? So one of those guys, after my mission, 2 years of collecting tons of no's and people not interested in me talking about Jesus, I went to school, and in college, like they just have tons of recruiters for door-to-door companies because they're like, dude, these guys just got back from missions. These guys love to knock on doors, right? So I went to BYU, by the way, Brigham Young University. this is actually a sister school, BYU Idaho. So I went there, tons of people recruiting. I was going to go sell pest control, but instead I sold DirecTV and Dish, and then eventually Sprint wireless door to door. Did that for 6 years. So that, after doing well, because you make a lot of money doing door to door. Not a lot of people know that, but it's very lucrative business. After that, I graduated and I got married, and I was like, man, I don't want to be moving all over, knocking doors for the rest of my life. This does not seem like a job. Even though it makes good money, I don't want to do this. So I was like, well, what is a good job to do? Like, what can make me a lot of money? And I started looking into like other jobs like insurance. I was like, man, insurance makes good money. So I went and interviewed at an insurance agency, and the guy's like grilling me. He's like, why should I hire you? I'm like, man, I'm good. I'm good at sales. Like, so I just didn't like the interviewing process. I was like, man, this is lame. Like, I can do big things, and this guy's grilling me. And I actually asked him, I was like, not trying to be prideful. I was just like, what could I make? Right? Like, what do you make? That's why I asked him, like, what do you make? Because eventually, like, I want to see what this looks like. Yeah. And he's like, I make like 120,000. And at that time I was making that more than that. Like door to door, you can make way more. Like in door to door, you can make a lot. So I was just like, man, I don't know if I want to work like 5-10 years like this guy and make like 120. Like that's the ceiling, or not the ceiling, but like that's potential.
Yeah.
So then I got interviewed from another job that was like insurance, but it was health insurance to sell like to companies. And same thing. The guy was like grilling me. And by grilling, I mean just asking a lot of questions that I didn't want to answer. I was like, this is lame. So eventually I was like, look, the corporate route or working for someone doesn't seem like I really want to do that at the moment. So I was like, well, my buddy did real estate in college. I called him up and said, hey man, I'm trying to find a job. Like real estate makes good money. Like, are you still doing that? He's like, nah, I went into tech sales, but I do want to get back into real estate. I was like, let's quit your job. Let's figure this thing out. Let's build a real estate company. And he was like, all right. So he quit and I stopped doing door to door, and we just went out and started trying to get deals.
That's
pretty crazy,
man.
right?
No, I absolutely love that. It's the door to door is a pretty amazing place to start. And I suspect that that's going to show up a bit more in your journey and what you've been doing with the wholesaling. But I've talked to so many folks that whether it was because they were doing a mission or whether it was just kind of an early college job, I think it seems like the most beneficial thing that you get from that is you just get comfortable with rejection really quickly because very you're getting so many no's, so many doors shut in your face. And for most people, human nature, like that kind of rejection is just a very uncomfortable thing. And most people can't live with that. But I think in door-to-door sales, whether it's a desensitization or whether you just learn to accept
definitely
it.
You're desensitized to it, man, because I don't feel comfortable unless someone's telling me, well, I don't want to say no, like someone's telling me no, but no, it's just like, that's in sales process. That's like in everything in life. Like people don't want what you have normally. That's okay.
Yeah.
It took me a lot of no's to find my wife, dude. A lot of no's.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's incredible because, right. There are a lot of no's, but there are some yeses. And when you get the yeses, that's what makes it all worth it.
And there's a lot of yeses out there. Like you just have to go through no's, and like you get better with time, right? Like the more no's you get, the better you're getting at getting yeses eventually, right?
100%. So you talk with your buddy, you convince him to quit his tech sales job, which I'm sure was a pretty lucrative spot for him. Tech sales is
good.
Generally has a pretty high ceiling. So in starting a real estate business, I mean, what were you starting with? Did you have a pretty clear vision? Did you have some capital that you were ready to invest? Or was it just like, we're real estate people now?
Dude, I'm like the guy that doesn't know what he's doing, but he just tries to figure it out. That's like me to a T. Like, so I didn't know anything about real estate at all, period. I just knew about, you can make money. That's it. And I thought he knew a lot, but he didn't really know as much as I thought he did until like I found that out pretty soon after we started working together. So Didn't know what wholesaling was, didn't know what fix and flip. Like, obviously, you know what fix and flip is, but I didn't know anything. But I was like, so what are we going to do? Like, he's like, well, we got to find a deal. So that was like the thought. It was like, just kind of like, door to door, like, okay, how do you make money? You got to go find someone that wants to buy your product. My thought was like, we got to go find someone that wants to sell at a discount. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's all we did. And, $0. Cause I told my wife, and by the way, like it wasn't like, me quitting the door-to-door thing was going to put me and my family in, like out on the streets if I didn't figure it out like in 6 months. Like I had a lot of money saved up, and we had a house. Like my wife like is a dental hygienist, so it wasn't like it was that big of a risk, right?
You weren't betting the farm at this point. It was a calculated.
It was calculated, yes. Yeah. And that's the thing is like I try to live in a lifestyle where it's like very risk averse in the sense like, dude, are you really ever betting the farm? Like you should just live under your means. Like you should live below how much you make, so you're not like stressing, right? So anyway, we're in a situation where we had money and we were living very frugally, and we still do. And anyway, so we went out and just started looking for deals, and $0. That's why I brought this up, because my wife, I was like, babe, I'm going to start a real estate business. And she's like, okay. And I was like, she's like, you can't use any of our money though. And I was like, all right, I'll figure it out. So we started with $0. Me and Corey just would meet in my basement. I'd meet up. We'd go to my house, for 1 week, and then his apartment at the time for 1 week off, 1 week off, like 1 week on, 1 week off. We would just rotate, and we were just calling for sale by owners in my basement, and we were knocking doors like at night, trying to find people. And that's what it looked like for maybe about 2 months. And then we realized like we had no idea what we were doing, and it wasn't going to work. So we put out a Facebook post saying, hey, we want to network with anyone that's in real estate. Like who do I know? And this on Corey's post, like one of his mission buddies, one of his friends, like from back in the day he didn't talk to, was like, hey, I work for a broker. He wants to get into wholesaling. Come meet him. So we go and sit down with this broker, and he's like, guys, I just had a dream that I started wholesaling the other day. And we're like, really? Because that's what we're trying to do. He's like, come work in my office. That's what he said. Come work in my office. I have some cubicles. I'll give you a dialer, and I'll give you some lists. I have some software, Mojo Dialer, and you can call some expired listings. And any deals that you get from wholesaling, great. And any listings you get from them, just give them to me, and I'll give you a commission. Like I'll cut you in on anything. And I was like, done. So we just started cold calling every day for like 4 hours from there. Eventually, after 2 months of cold calling, we got a deal from an expired listings list. This guy name was Donald. And anyway, I can go into that story, but do you have any? I feel like I'm just talking too much.
So one, just you'd mentioned that Corey, your partner in this endeavor, was in real estate. Did either of you get licensed as realtors?
No, bro, not it. No, we just went in, and when he was in real estate, when we were in college in Idaho, he would do lease options, and what that means is he would basically take over someone. I think he would just find a seller that needed to sell, and he would give them like a little bit of a down payment and make them payments monthly, and then he would lease out their property. So he would buy it on terms from them. He wouldn't buy it all out, right? He'd buy it on terms from them, and then do a lease option to someone else. That's what he knew. So he didn't really know wholesaling that well.
So he had gotten into it more from the investor angle than like a traditional real estate agent kind of deal. And so then you're working out of this real estate office, using a dialer, making cold calls. Any guesses on how many calls you had to make in those 2 months before you got your first deal?
With the dialer, it's really hard to know, but I would say 4 hours for 2 months, every 5 days a week. I don't know. Let's just say 300 hours between us both to get a deal. Yeah. I have to look at the math, but it's probably around there.
A lot.
A lot. Yeah, a lot. Yes. And dude, I remember cold calling, I would get fired up because I thought, like, coming from the sales background, I thought like you had to convince people to sell. Like I thought, because in door to door, you try to convince people to buy your product, right? Like, hey, it's better. These are the features. At least that's what I did when I was a bad salesman. Like now that I'm better, I know you can't convince anyone to do anything. But when I first started cold calling, I'd be like, hey, do you want to sell your house? And they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, why not? We can buy it for like fast cash, easy, convenient. And people would be like, dude, get lost. So I was getting mad all the time because I was like, dude, this isn't working. But you know, yeah,
Sure.
you learn a lot as you go, dude.
Yeah, well, and cold calling's kind of like that next step. It's like door knocking on steroids in terms of the amount of rejection and how quickly you get it, and you don't have that like face to face
Yes.
either. It is a
People are a
different
lot
skill
braver
set.
on the phone. That's just say that they're a lot more brave because I was used to door to door, so I didn't have people like getting wild on me, or else like I would have been able to do something about it. Not that I would have done much, but on the phone,
Yeah,
it was another level.
yeah. So let's talk about this first deal and how that kind of leads into subsequent deals, especially from the angle of just how you put the whole thing together. Did you use once you had identified the seller? Did you have a buyer's agent come and help you through the whole process, or what did that all look like? The transaction.
Bro, I'm telling you, like you want to know not how to do it. This is the deal. Like,
That's what we're here for. Tell us
look,
what not to do.
this is like for everybody listening to my story of like, is this how you want to get started? Probably not. Like my journey, I just went for it and failed 1,000 times, and that's why I coach people is because like you don't have to do what I did to figure it out, right? Like I made like a ton of mistakes that I would say even like educated, like smart people would not make, right? I don't, maybe I was just dumb and I didn't care. But so this is what it went like. So Donald, we had called him, and it was a guy from Croatia facing for a pre-foreclosure. His house was on the expired listings because he listed it. Nobody wanted to buy it. So he just was like, fine, I'm just going to let it go to the bank. And when we called him, he was like, yeah, I want to sell, but you know, I want a number. And if I don't get it, I'm just going to let the bank have it, you know, and he was going to lose all that equity. So we went over there, knocked on his door. Dude, you know, we would go see him at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and dude would always be sleeping. I think he was like majorly depressed. A lot of things were going on in his life. So we go knock on the door. He let us in, and we just pretty much like hung out with him for like 2 weeks, right? We are just like, and it's such a weird scenario because like now the sales process I do now is like I'm not hanging out with people, but this is what we did. We were like, hey Donald, we're here, man. Like we'd call him and he wouldn't answer, so we like, let's just go knock on his door. He's probably home, and we just knock on his door. He'd open up from like half asleep and be like, what's up, Donald? How's it going, man? And we just chill. He'd have just talk for a while, and then eventually we're like, dude, so you're really gonna let this thing go to the bank? He's like, nah, like what would you guys buy it for? And we're like 185. We just thought that was low enough. The ARV was 250. We knew how to know like check what a property is worth if you fix it up. So 250, and we were is what it was looking like it was worth, and we're like, I don't know, 185, does that work? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we signed an agreement with him. Didn't have any buyers, didn't know even how to find a buyer at that point. We were just trying to get a contract for a low price, right?
Yeah.
That was the first time. Okay, first contract, low price, we were stoked, 185. Okay, so now how do we find a buyer? Well, we didn't know, you know, so we had to figure it out. So we went on Facebook groups that had real estate investing Facebook groups, and we were just like, hey, does anybody want this deal? And we would go to RIA, like the RIA meetup. We knew about that eventually. So we print out a little packet with the pictures, and we brought the packets to the RIAs, and we're like, does anyone want to buy this? And nobody there is experienced, like at least at that one. So everyone was just like looking at it. They couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So we were just like, well, nobody wants it. So the broker, who doesn't know what he's doing, he's like, hey, let's blast your deal out to every real estate agent in Utah. I'm sure somebody has a buyer. And I'm like, okay, great. So he takes this house that we have under contract, and he just blasts out to, I don't know how many agents, like 20,000 agents, 50, I don't know how many.
Yeah.
So he's sending out to agents that don't know what wholesaling is. For everybody that's listening, wholesaling is when you do not own a property, you have it under contract, and you're trying to find an end buyer who has cash that will buy it, and then you get paid the difference of what you have it under contract for and what you assign it to the cash buyer for. So he sends this out to agents that don't know what this is. So they just all of them start calling us with their buyers, like their families, right?
Sure.
And this is not a cash. This is not like a deal where this works because it's trashed. So we end up getting a call from the Board of Realtors, and they call us in. And I don't know who the Board of Realtors is. I have no idea who these people are. So we go, and they call us in. We go to Salt Lake City, like downtown, and we sit in front of like this. They call us into this office, and this guy with a tape recorder and a suit sits us down. He's like, "Do you mind if I record you guys?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Sure, go ahead." So he starts recording us. And he's like, "Are you guys aren't allowed to practice real estate without a license?" And I was like, "Bro, I don't know what you're talking about. We just started this like a month ago." Anyway, apparently, like in Utah, and this is happening more and more now, but they're like, you can't market properties unless you're a real estate agent. And a lot of people think wholesaling is like marketing, right? A property. So anyway, he was like, "You can't do this." And apparently he was trying to get us in trouble. But he saw that we weren't going to go anywhere in life or in real estate because we had no idea what we were doing. So he just let us go. Anyway, eventually someone responded to one of my Facebook messages named Roger. And he was like, "I'll buy it." And I was like, "Well, what you pay for it?" He says, $185. So he offers the exact same price that I have it under contract for.
Under contract, yeah.
And he won't go up. So I go back to Donald and I say, "Look, Donald, we offered you a little too much money. We can't pay that, but we know somebody that can pay $185. Like, we're trying to make some money on this. Can you come down?" He's like, "Well, what do you want me to do, guys?" And I was like, "Can you come down to like 180?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Sure." So that was it. We just re-signed like a new agreement at 180, wholesaled it to Roger for 185, made $5K on our first deal. It was a terrible process. It was the worst. Like, don't do this. Anybody that's listening to this, don't do anything I just did.
Yeah,
I mean, that was my first deal.
Right. It was bumpy. It sounds kind of like the first deal. Like, it took forever to get to it. The numbers weren't exactly where you want it, but it sounds to me like you'd still put that in the win column. Like, you came out ahead on it.
Everything's a win, man. That's the thing that you'll realize, everybody that's listening to, like, everything's a win. That's why I look at like all the mistakes I made. It's all good, right? Like,
yeah.
I never look at anything, a mistake as, it's like, there's a quote I actually like that I wrote down here, and I'll just read it really quick. Because a lot of people think mistakes are bad, right? And obviously, if you can avoid them, do it. Like, get someone that can help you. But if you can't, it's okay. So this one says, "Mistakes and perfection do not contradict one another." Okay, so like making mistakes and trying to be perfect, it's not contradictory to do that. Like, you have to make mistakes to obtain perfection or to be better. So it's all good. It's just you got to go through the fire to get better, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of, that quote is interesting. Like, you think about the only people that are, essentially perfect are like newborns, because they haven't made any mistakes yet. So if you want to stay perfect, you got to have the maturity of a newborn. But if you want to actually grow and do things in life, mistakes are just part and parcel with that and getting to where you want to go. And your journey has definitely been an evidence of that.
Yes.
So
I got a lot of them.
Yeah. Man, your journey is amazing. I'd love to, from my own curiosity, like, I'd love to talk about every single deal that you've done, but for the sake of the show and listeners that we have here, most of my audience, they're really thinking about the home buying process from, all right, how do I make it as financially efficient as possible? So one of the big things that we talk about on the show is just, hey, the more that you can reduce transaction fees, the better it is as a consumer. And one of the biggest pieces of any real estate transaction fees is realtor commissions. And it feels a bit redundant to have both a listing agent and a buyer's agent. You got two agents on every single real estate deal, essentially. And so the whole message that I have is, hey, if you can learn how to buy a home without using a buyer's agent, you can save thousands of dollars. I'm really curious how that has rung true or not in your own experience within the real estate industry. Like, what have you used agents? What value have you seen agents provide? What have you found by not using agents? How big and scary are real estate transactions? I know that there's a lot of different directions you could go in there, but wherever your mind takes you, let's go there.
Now, being able to do transactions direct to seller, without agents involved at all, you realize that it's very, very simple. Like now when you get lending, and like I do cash transactions normally, right? Where you get a hard money lender, use cash. It's really simple. You just have a contract direct to seller. It just says, I want to buy your house for this price. You send it to a title company. It's over. And then you make sure everybody signs and the cash is there. That's it. Nothing crazy. There's no reason you need an agent in that situation, right? So when you bring an agent into like the situation of retail, right, where you got to get lending, like they don't really do much on the lending side. Like that's the lender, right? So my experience with agents has been like, if they have the value they provide is like, if they have like a off market listing, then it's like, of course I'm going to pay you a commission. Like you bringing me something I didn't know exists. And I look at the same way as like, if they're listing a property on the MLS, like they're bringing that property to the market. That's valuable. A buyer's agent that's like, hey, did you see that deal that is online? It's like, well, yes, I saw it. I'm looking for deals. Like, why would I pay you 3% to help me? I can just call that agent directly and just sign the paperwork, right? So buyer's agents, I don't see the value in a buyer's agent unless they bring you a deal that is not that you can't see already. That's what I would say from my experience. So for example, I just moved here to Canada, right? Would you say potentially like being in another country that might be a little intimidating to like know the process of how to buy a house?
One would think, yep.
One would think, right? But knowing what I know about real estate, I don't know much about the rules here, but I'm like, well, it's probably the exact same. Like, let me just call a real estate agent that has a property. They're bringing something to the market and let me represent myself, right? And I did that. So I called on all these, and as I'm doing it, they're like, do you need someone to represent you? I'm like, no, I can see all the 50 properties that I've narrowed it down to that I like that you could send me in a drip. Like, I'm good. Unless you bring me something that's off, and I'll definitely off market and I'll pay you for sure for doing that. So I called the agent on this house that I bought where I'm at right now. It's a farm, which is, I freaking love it. Called the agent. The agent was representing her nephew. And I said, look, I'm unrepresented. There's two things we can do here. I can just be unrepresented and you can give them a discount for there not being 3%. We can get an offer lower knowing that that's not in the cost, or you can collect both sides of the commission if you want. I don't care. I don't care either way. And there was some competition on the deal. There was like another offer. So that sweetened up the deal. And obviously she wants to make two sides of the commission. I'm sure she told him and he was like, yeah, sure. So she did all the paperwork, which probably was very minimal, and got the deal done. But who's to say if like we didn't have a representative, maybe the other person would have won. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Oh, it totally does. So, and just to clarify for listeners, so in the case of the property that you just most recently purchased, by going direct to the agent, you elected not to push for that 3% coming back to you in like a discount or credit, but instead you made your offer essentially 3% more attractive than competing offers, because that agent got to keep the full commission, and therefore it was a better deal for her. She probably talked it up to her nephew, or maybe there was some sort of split, where she gave him a little bit of that cut. But regardless, you were able to leverage not having an agent to give you a competitive advantage in the home buying process. Is that a fair way of putting it?
100%. I would say no one needs a buyer's agent if you know how to use the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the tools that you find most helpful, both personally as well as when you're doing real estate investing and looking to acquire properties? How do you find properties? What do you do in terms of researching neighborhoods or running comparative market analysis?
There's two softwares I mainly use when it comes to the investing side. It's Privy and Batch Leads. Those are two different softwares. One, Batch Leads, you can pull lists, you can drive for dollars and mark properties, and you can run analyses on it. And the other one, Privy, it shows you like discounted properties on the MLS throughout the United States, and you can just call the agents directly and find your own deals. And you can set the percentage of after repair value to say, hey, I want a house that's this percentage of the value. It's not always nothing. None of the algorithms are perfect, right? You have to like look into it, but those are the two I like. And yeah, that's. When it comes to finding properties, there's so many ways. Like that's what I coach people on. Like you can start calling people in pre-foreclosure and probate, divorce. You can reach out to tired landlords. You can call, text, email, mail. Like you can do everything under the sun to get basically like what you're trying to do is like, do you want to sell your house at a discount? Like you don't say that, but that's who you're looking for. And then usually people that want to sell at a discount have a problem, or they're trying to solve something. Because no one's trying to sell their house for less than it's worth unless they need to get something done. But yeah, that's what we're looking for, is the people that we need to we can solve a problem and help them. But that's a long answer to what you asked.
No, that's great. And I'll include links to those couple of resources. I'm familiar, especially with batch leads. Privy, I've poked around on a little bit, but I haven't actually had firsthand experience using it. But that sounds sounds good.
Use my affiliate link.
There we go. Yeah, send it to me. I'll be sure to include it in the notes below. And one of the main reasons I was excited to have you on here too is because I think that learning to become a DIY home buyer, learning how the real estate transactions work, how to represent yourself, is especially attractive to real estate investors, because the more deals that you're doing, obviously the more that you're saving by being able to leverage your knowledge and skill, not having to bring in a buyer's agent.
Bro, if you're an investor and you don't know how to represent yourself, well, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, because it's kind of crazy to me how many don't. I totally resonate with what you're saying. Like if a buyer's agent is bringing you, or any agent is bringing you an off-market deal, like there is real value in that. But you articulated it so well. Like you shouldn't be paying somebody to show you a property that you yourself can see online, that you can do your own research and study for. Like that, you shouldn't pay somebody that isn't bringing real tangible value to the transaction.
And the paperwork is so dumb too. It's like, I'm going to fill out a couple like not bullet points, but like little signatures on a document. And then I'm going to send it to the title company where they do everything anyway. Like what the heck are you doing? Like maybe you're giving some advice, like don't buy this house, but usually that doesn't happen.
Well, right. And because they're incentivized for you to buy the house, because they don't get paid if you don't buy the house. So there's a misalignment there as well. But talk to us a bit about just the opportunity within real estate investing, because obviously real estate is cyclical, and there was a huge, run of prices and people getting really interested in real estate investing, like 2018 through 2020. And then the last couple of years, it's been felt a lot more difficult with interest rates, with there not being nearly as much available inventory. And so for any of my listeners that are just thinking about like, all right, I want to leverage the knowledge that I'm gaining about real estate transactions and get into real estate investing, where are you seeing the opportunities, and what are the best ways for people to start?
If you go to my Facebook group, that's the best place to start.
Let's go.
Yeah. So no, for real, I have a Facebook group called Payneless Flipping, like my last name, Payne, Payneless Flipping. And it's called Wholesaling Real Estate Simplified. I believe that people should start there at finding off-market properties that are discounted, because that's a great place to start. You start having conversations with sellers directly, agents directly, wholesalers. Like it doesn't matter what you want to do, but you're trying to find a property where you can add value. That's where I would say people should start, because like there's so many different avenues into getting into real estate. Like for a lot of people want to get into being a landlord because they read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? They're like, oh, let me own some properties. But like that's a very dangerous that one thing that people don't talk about is if you buy a rental and you don't have like enough money for vacancies and you don't have enough money for repairs, like the money that you make on cash, a lot of people don't even cash flow, but if you do cash flow, $400, $500 a month for 8 months or a year, and the tenant moves out and they trash it, your cash flow is pretty much gone if you need a new roof and carpet. And so a lot of people don't know, get wrecked, right? They get in trouble because they over leverage themselves. They don't have the money and they didn't know about all the issues that come with it. So I don't think that's the first place to start unless you have a lot of money saved up. And like there's like this one, a lot of investors say like, hey, you shouldn't even get into owning real estate unless you have like several hundred thousands of dollars like in your bank, so you can like weather the storms that will potentially happen through real estate, like people vacancies and issues. I don't know if you need that much necessarily, but I would say finding properties, wholesaling is a great way to start because it requires zero capital of your own money. I started with $0. I don't spend any money on marketing at the moment, and I get deals. So it's anyway that's another long answer to your question, but I think it's getting started in finding properties off market.
Yeah. And you still seeing deals out there that hasn't all dried up like the doomsayers try to say?
No, this is the thing for everybody that I really like about our industry is like, number one, everyone always needs a place to live, right? So you will always have a job in real estate. Number two, but people will always have problems. They will have reasons that they need to sell. They lost their job. Their house needs more repairs than they can afford. They divorce, probate. Someone passed away and the kids don't want the home. So as long as death, divorce, and debt, like as long as those things exist, like investing in real estate will exist. So and those aren't going anywhere. So it's never going to dry up.
Yeah, no, that's a good word, man. And I've joined the Facebook group. I'm really impressed by the community that you've put together there, as well as the incredible resources. So I say that truly after spending some time on there over the weekend. And you got like well over 6,000 members strong. It's cool to see that growing. And I will have links to that as well in the show notes for any listeners that do want to check that out. I highly encourage folks to do so. Is there anywhere else that you want people to go to connect with you or follow along with what you're doing?
I do everything through the Facebook group. If you guys like just to binge on some content and like how to do this, like I have a YouTube channel called Nathan Payne, Payneless Flipping. I have tons of videos on there to show you, like actually I do this business. So I record myself doing it like a ton, so you can learn hands-on. And I obviously within the group, I have an apprenticeship where I work with certain amount of people where I help them get their first deals or I walk them through the process, like super hands-on, right? Like I don't have like a giant coaching, like I guess mentorship because I can't take on that many people, but that's where people can work with me if they want to apply or if they want to learn more. So.
Yeah. Well, rock on, man. You're doing good work. I appreciate your vibe and the sort of value that you're bringing to the industry. Grateful for the insights that you've shared with me and with my listeners here. And wish you all the best, continued success, especially as you settle into the great north up there in Canada now.
I love it out here. We're going to be ice skating. It's been freezing cold. At least it's been cold to me, but oh man, I love it. It's a country life. It's been calling me and I finally made it out here.
Living the dream. Well, congratulations to you in that. And like I said, I'm just excited to see where things go. So we will definitely stay in touch. But Nathan, thank you. Listeners, thank you for coming along. Do be sure to subscribe to the show. Anything that you found valuable in here, the very best thing that you can do, share it with somebody else. Don't hold all the goods to yourself, but share it far and wide. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, everybody.